welcome everyone to my presentation. The title is Deliver a Useful and Beautiful Help Center right from Confluence. And I want to show you how you can use our add-on Scroll Viewport to author in Confluence, publish this content with Scroll Viewport, and create a beautiful help center to, at the end up with happy customers. Short introduction, my name is Nils. I'm responsible for customer success at K15T Software. We are a Germany-based Atlassian partner and add-on vendor. You might know us because of that we are the makers of the Scroll add-ons, or now called Scroll apps for Confluence, and Backbone Issue Sync. With these Scroll add-ons, basically we are developing tools that allow you to transform Confluence into a help center and offer your customers a great experience using those help centers. So that's the topic today. First, let's have a look how we help our customers, how we are using our own products to deliver our help content to our customers. So this is our help center, basically available on help.k15t.com. This is how it looks like. So let's have a look at the elements we see here. So the first big element we see is the search bar. That search bar allows you to search the help content. And you can type in any search term, and then it finds results from our public documentation. So any public documentation is searched. Then it searches our public Jira system. So any open feature requests, any bugs will be displayed there as well. Additionally, it searches our public forum and our blog posts. So basically all our public user documentation or all our public content will be searched and will show up in the results. Next element we see is like a filter option, because by now we ended up with more than 15 different add-ons. So we need to have like a specific filter action to not display all the content on one single page. What you can do here, and then based on the filter you set here, the documentation will be displayed below, and you can jump into into the specific product documentation basically. If you go down, we have additional information here. So first we have a link to our public forums where you can interact with the community. You can ask your questions publicly, can get help from our other customers, or of course also from us ourselves. Then we have another section about generic help FAQs. So any questions regarding licensing, purchasing, anything that's generic for, or like valid for all our products is linked here in those FAQs. And then in this green button, green means good, means help. Here you get access to our support system. So you can directly create a support request if you can't find the information you're looking for. And if you have any specific question, get in touch with us, create a support ticket, and then we interact with you and help solving the issue. The last element on the page is our standard footer. It's the same footer as on our website, as our help center is integrated in our website perfectly with the same design and the same look and feel. Okay, let's have a look at one of the content pages more specifically. So in the example, let's have a look at the Backbone server documentation, and here on the Get Started page. So we open this page, and here we go. What can we see here? Basically, first element is an announcement banner. So we have the possibility to show public-related news to our customers using this announcement banner. For example, a new cloud version, new product release, any incompatibility or any bug we are currently working on, or new blog posts, any product-related news can be shared here. Then the next item worth mentioning is this version picker here. So we are offering some of our add-ons both for cloud and for server. And here in this version picker, our customers can pick which version they want to see. You have a question?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but on your Help Center site, which of your add-ons are you using?
On the Help Center site, I'll come to that later, but it's basically Scroll Viewport and Scroll versions. Okay. But I show that in more in detail later on. And this dropdown is basically coming from scroll versions. Exactly. So customers can pick which version they want to read. There's one version valid for cloud, one user documentation, because there's no older version available of the cloud product, and multiple versions for the server documentation. So customers go there, pick their version, and then see the content accordingly. Next, again, we have another search bar. And in this case, this only searches the currently selected space, the currently selected product documentation. In that case, Backbone only, but still forums and Jira issues, but only for Backbone in that case. Then the next element is the table of contents, so links to all the major headings on that, or first level headings on that page. You can directly jump to one of those headings. It scrolls down directly. We have related content displaying, or where we can show links to any related pages with more information. And then again, a support button where customers can ask questions or get in touch with us if the information on the page is not helping, if they have any additional questions. Left-hand side, we have the content area. In that case, it's a big page, a long page. So if we scroll down to the end, the next element is, or another element is like that we can jump up to the top again, or again, links to other related topics and a link back to the landing page, basically. And then the final element is a comment section. So we have implemented discuss here. So our customers can interact with us, can ask product or documentation related questions. We can answer them publicly and can help them solving their issues. And if we look at that, at our help center from a customer perspective, how is the customer experience on our help center? What are the benefits, basically? The first big benefit is that as a customer, I'm finally able to find the information I'm looking for. So using the search tool, the search bar, or simply browsing the information, I find what I'm looking for and I can solve my problems. Additionally, we are offering the direct feedback channels, so they can get in touch with us, either by using the Discuss integration or also by filing a support request. So they have a direct feedback channel. We can help them and work with them and interact with the customer directly. If we take those advantages and now have a look at them, or have a look at them from our perspective as a vendor, we also have advantages. The first big advantage we see is that customers are able to help themselves. So we are offering a more effective self-service, which means we have fewer support efforts and fewer support tickets because customers are able to find the information they're looking for and can help themselves. And additionally, customer feedback. The feedback channel is also beneficial for us because we can not only improve the documentation as we get direct feedback on a specific documentation page, but can in the long term also improve the product itself because we identify parts of the products that are not understandable or not that easy to use by our customers, so we can work on that and improve the user experience there as well. Okay, how is this help center set up? How can we achieve this experience or the design and the look and feel we just saw? So far we spoke about customers and vendors, but to be more generic, it's basically readers on the one hand side and contributors on the other side. The readers, they are basically simply consuming the content, so they want to view the content and get information to solve their problems. Whereas contributors on the other side, they are actively participating in the content creation. So this can either be or is in fact our tech writer, but it's also any subject matter expert like product managers, developers. They are all working together on the docs and improve them over time. Both readers and contributors have different requirements. The readers, they simply want to read the content in an optimized view. And the contributors, they need a tool to work on the content collaboratively and improve the docs, keep them up to date, and keep them relevant. The readers, on the other side, they don't care about the tool that's used. They simply want to have the information, and the information they consume should be valid and up to date. Speaking about collaboration, as we said, as a contributor, we are collaborating on the content, and we all know Confluence is a great tool to collaborate on content, which is why we are using Confluence internally as our tool to work on the content. And we use Scroll Viewport to present this content beautifully styled to our readers in an optimized view in the look and feel we just saw before. So Confluence is the tool of choice to work on the content with Scroll Viewport used to display this content beautifully styled to our readers. How is that working? How is Scroll Viewport basically working? Based on the Confluence permissions, Viewport knows which content or which presentation layer it should be displayed. So if you only have view permissions for a space, you are automatically redirected to the reader view, so to say, so to see the content beautifully styled. Whereas if you have edit permissions, you have access to the backend. You have access to the Confluence system itself, can work on the content and update the pages and curate the documentation, basically. Of course, as a contributor, you can also switch back and forth between the backend and the front end, so to say. So can switch back and forth between the Confluence view and the Viewport view to see how your changes are actually displayed to the readers. So if we go back to our example from before, the Get Started page of Backbone, this is what you see if you only have view permissions for a space, whereas if you have edit permissions and you are a contributor, you see this. You see the same content in the Confluence editor. As you can see, it's the standard Confluence editor without any styling applied to it. So it's still the same tool all your authors are used to. So on top of the two benefits we already saw, so a more effective self-service, resulting in fewer support efforts for us, and the direct feedback channels, which allow us to improve the documentation and the product. The third big advantage we have is that the content is super easy to manage, as we can work together on the content in Confluence, can update the content and make it available to our readers. So that, again, leads to more satisfied readers because the content is always up to date and curated very good. Okay, so again, as main tool to deliver this beautiful help center, based on Confluence, we use Scroll Viewport. What is this Scroll Viewport? Basically, Viewport allows you to use your Confluence system as a CMS. So you have full control on how to style the content without changing the actual Confluence UI. So your contributors are still using the standard Confluence look and feel, so nothing changes for them. They don't need to search for any buttons. It still looks exactly the same. And then you have another view on the content based on Confluence, like the Viewport, basically. And that's like the main differentiation between standard theming add-ons and Viewport, is that Viewport provides a separate view to the content, a viewport, so to say. And this viewport is super powerful because it uses basically standard web technologies like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So if you're a front-end developer, it's super easy to set up and make your own theme to make it look like your company's style. And then finally, as we saw before, Viewport allows you to display the content based on the user's needs, so we can give everyone what they need. The contributor can work in the Confluence editor, and the reader still see the same content, but optimized in an optimized view. Okay, so far we saw how we present the content to our readers, And now let's have a look how we actually manage the content. How do we manage the content in the backend? So going back to our example page, the Get Started page for Backbone, those of you who are familiar with Confluence, you might have seen some minor changes or new buttons that are here. The first thing is this little icon. And if you click on that, there's a pop-up screen displayed. And this is introduced by Scroll Viewport and allows you as a contributor to switch back and forth between the Confluence view and the Viewport view to see how your readers see the page you are just viewing. Additionally, another add-on we are using, as mentioned before, Scroll Viewport, so Scroll Versions, sorry. And Scroll Versions basically allows us to have multiple versions of our documentations here. And additionally, another UI element introduced by Scroll Versions is in the page byline, information of the in which versions the currently viewed page has been changed. So those two other elements we saw, they are introduced by the other add-on we are using for our help center, which is Scroll Versions. And Scroll Versions, as the name says, introduces version management on a space level to Confluence. So it allows you to manage multiple versions of your documentation within a single space. And then once a new version of your documentation or a new version of your product is ready and you want to publish or you want to make the new documentation available, you can publish it with a few clicks and then make this content available to your readers. You simply select the version you want to make available, click on publish, and then it will be available for your readers. Of course, sometimes you also need to have a review process in place because you don't want to publish unfinished pages or pages that are outdated, etc. So Versions also comes with a workflow integration, allowing you to have your own review process. Then each page needs to go through this review process, and at the end, you can define to only publish pages that are in this final state. So you have a complete overview and complete control which pages to be published. How does the management side of Scroll Versions look like? How does it look like for us in the back end, in the Confluence? If we go to back to our example, basically this is the versions view, the versions administration. We have each version basically based on each other, so they are in a linear appearance here. And each version inherits content from the previous version. So 3.5 is based on 3.4, 3.4 and 3.3, etc. But sometimes it also might be that you need a more complex version scenario. And Scroll Versions also allows you to set it up differently, for example, like this. So here we can see we have basically documentation branches. So similar to a software development process, you can also create a branch, a documentation branch in a specific version, can work on that version. And then once you have finished it and once you want to ship that feature, basically you merge the documentation back into the version that will be shipped in. So in this example, feature A and feature B are both based on 5.9 OD2. The authors can work on those versions, can change the content, and then once the product team decided that feature A will be shipped in 5.9 OD2, you merge this branch back into that, publish the version and make it available. And if feature B will only make it in 5.10, you do the same, you merge this documentation branch back into the actual version, basically. So the authoring process we have in place looks like that. So once we plan a new product version, we create a new version or a new version in Confluence. Our authors work in that version, make the changes, pick this version, edit the changes, and update the documentation. As said before, those versions are based on each other. And they also inherit information because most of the time you have hundreds of pages in your docs, but for a new version only a dozen of them or 15 or 20 change, and then you actually only need to change those pages, but not everything, because as long as you don't change a page in a version, it will still display the content of the previous one. So there's no need to copy and paste anything, but Scroll Versions will automatically handle that for you. And then finally, or the big benefit of that is that you can align the documentation process with the product releases. And you can work in parallel with your development team on the documentation, and then once you decide to release the new product, you release the product and at the same time publish the new documentation, and everything is live. So to wrap this up, Confluence is internally used to collaborate on the content with all our content stakeholders. So we all work in Confluence. We use Scroll Viewport to display that content to our readers in a beautifully styled in our K15T look and feel, in our company style. And to manage multiple versions of our documentation, we are using Scroll Versions to work in parallel to the documentation process and keep track of multiple documentation versions. But of course, we haven't created those products for us internally, but mainly for our customers. So as promised, I also brought a couple of customer examples, which I want to share with you now. The first one, first big customer or first public Viewport or public help center managed with Confluence and Viewport is from SAP. Again, let's quickly go through that. They also have implemented a search bar that allows their customers to search the content. And then below here, they have different sections to go into a specific topic more into detail. So the customers can click here and then end up, for example, on a page like that. This is the content area. So this looks pretty close to the Confluence UI with the page tree on the left-hand side and the content area on the right-hand side, but still completely in the SAP style. So all the content you see here is based in Confluence and is managed or displayed to us as a reader using Scroll Viewport. Another example, one of our biggest customers is from CA Technologies. And CA Technologies, they are documenting more than 300 products in Confluence and display that with Scroll Viewport. So each single product you see here lives in its own space. So if you go to docops.ca.com, you pick a specific product here, then end up in the product-related documentation space. Again, the look and feel close to Confluence with the search bar and the page tree and the content area on the right-hand side, but still, as before, in the company style, in the CA look and feel. Additionally, they are also using Scroll Versions to manage multiple versions of their documentation. And then another customer, actually one we are pretty proud of, is Atlassian themselves. So all the content that you see on confluence.atlassian.com, all the help content there, is also stored in Confluence and presented to us as a reader using Scroll Viewport. And additionally, they also have, as you know, cloud products and server products. So this version picker here is also implemented using, or the versions they are displaying to us as a reader are also managed with Scroll Versions.
So is that entire site Viewport? Everything that's on there that we're seeing right now is Viewport?
This is all Viewport. If you go to the landing page itself, so confluence.atlassian.com, where you have all the products, that's not a Viewport, but every single exactly. So the landing page is not managed by the Viewport, but then every product documentation page is a Viewport. So each single page you see here is basically in Confluence managed with the Viewport. And as you see, like basically the possibilities are kind of endless. All the examples we saw, they completely look different. So you can basically implement everything that's possible with those web technologies. And then the last example is from BMC software. Again, what you see here is in Confluence, is in a Confluence space, presented to us as a reader using scroll viewport. Then they are also having a version picker, so they are also using scroll versions to manage their multiple versions of the documentation. And then additionally, BMC has the use case to present the content multilingual. So they are using a third add-on of ours, scroll translations, which allows them to manage multiple languages within a space. So if you go to their docs page and you click on this language picker here, you can either see the content in English or in Japanese. So the content, again, lives in the same space, managed with scroll translations in that case. How does translations work? Using translations, you can manage multiple languages in the space. Once it's set up, you can either work directly and manually in Confluence, translate manually, using a split screen editor, basically, so where you have the original language on the left-hand side, and then you work on the translation on the right-hand side, do that manually. Of course, that's kind of a bit cumbersome if you need to change hundreds of pages, but it's rather a use case where you can fix a small typo or add any like small changes to a specific page. Whereas if you want to translate a whole space, translations also allows you to do that, as it allows you to implement external translation management systems. So there, the workflow basically looks like that. You are authoring collaboratively in Confluence, in your Confluence space where scroll translations is installed. Create the default like the default content in your original language. Then you export this language and import it to an external translation management system. Translate it here automatically or with an agency. And then you import that content back to Confluence, and you can display it to the web using scroll viewport. This is how it looks like in the UI. So you basically select the translation format. This can either be the Confluence storage format, or can also be XLIF, which is a common known translation format that can be interpreted by basically all translation management systems. You select your target language. In the BMC example, it's Japanese. And then you select if you want to have all pages in this file or only the outdated ones, which means only the ones that have been changed since the last translation. Then you click on Translate, get a file, import that to your translation management system, translate it, and re-import it back to Confluence. OK, so again, BMC is using Confluence, working collaboratively on the content. Then, as they also need to present multiple versions, they're using scroll versions to manage their multiple versions of the documentation. Display it to us as a reader using scroll viewport, so we don't see the backend, we don't have access to the Confluence UI, we only see the content styled in BMC look and feel. And then finally, for this multilingual use case, they're using scroll translations to manage the languages and translations. Yeah, that was like just a short list of our customers. Besides that, we have more than 8,000 active installations of our add-ons, which not only include scroll versions, scroll translations, and scroll viewport, but also our scroll exporters, allowing you to export content into multiple export formats, conversations, video chat for Confluence, or Backbone issue sync, which allows you to synchronize multiple Jira instances or Jira projects. And this is basically it. If you have any questions, we can either discuss them now, or during the day, or during the next days at Summit. That's basically it. Thank you very much.